What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr Games, and today I am bringing you branded magicians. Now obviously it's a little bit difficult because it's not just a straight and out branded magicians, it's obviously going to be the Dark Magician version, and I say branded when probably it's more Despia, but it's definitely an update including the new Albaz Strike structure deck. It is still in the testing phase, which is why it's currently like a 45 to a 46 card deck. But I will show you the combos at the end and explain everything of why I'm doing it the way I am throughout the video. With all of that out of the way, if you want to see more from this particular profile and this particular build, then smash that like button, get it to at least 50 likes in the first 24 hours, and it will bring it to you. This video is going to be used more so as a basis for all of you out there that are like, okay, how can I put the branded fusion into the Dark Magician deck, and what does it actually do for me? So, with all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into this and go through the list. So I'll start off with the Dark Magician cards that we're going to be using, and then I'll go with the branded / Despia cards we're going to be using. It is pretty much a full split down the middle, so there are 23 Dark Magician cards, and I believe there are 22 or 23 branded / Despia cards. So we're playing 2 Dark Magician and 1 Red Eyes Black Dragon. That's right, we are still playing Red Eyes Fusion, albeit at 1. But the reason we've got this is it's one of those chances where you kind of still want it. Now, ultimately, when you look at it on paper, Red Eyes Fusion loses to less than Branded Fusion does. So Branded Fusion, throughout its play, yes, it can be ashed, but then when you make Lubellion or Albion, it can also be impermed and veiled. Whereas when you activate Red Eyes Fusion, unless they have an Ash, you're guaranteed to get a Dragoon. The only downside is you can't continue to play, whereas with the Branded Fusion, you can. So you're basically taking the gamble and doing a bit of give and go to see how it works, which is why I've kept 1 and 1 in. The chances are you're probably going to Red Eyes Fuse off of the back of Verte more times than actually hard drawing it, which is why we're only playing it at 1. We've then got triple Magician Souls, so there's actually a lot of cards that can help you recycle your branded spells and traps and everything like that. So Souls can be very, very good at discarding the free fodder. The other downside of Souls as well is because we can't link someone once we activate the branded fusion, the chances are if you've opened up Souls plus something else, you're either going to be summoning out Dark Magician for the aggression push going second, or you're going to be summoning Souls onto the board to use it as fodder. There is a really cool combo that I'll show you at the end where the additional body of Magician Souls on the board can be incredibly useful for you as long as you've got a Despia in the graveyard, and it can actually be more advantageous to you than just leaving it on the board in defense. Specifically with Super Poly running around, you want to minimize the amount of darks you're just leaving on the board, and that's where a side deck option or arguably a main deck option of Secret Villager the Spellcaster comes in, because being able to activate that not only blocks Super Poly, but off the back of that as well, it does stop stuff like Dark Ruler no more, and of course Forbidden Droplet, so it means your Dragoon is even harder to deal with. We've then got 2 Magician's Rod, so this is the first of our normal summons. So in previous profiles, obviously I've shown you Manju for the ritual build, I've shown you Diviner for like a Synchro / ritual build, and with this one I've gone with Rod and Aluba, the Jester of Despia. So you can kind of see the way that we're going. The God Hand is opening up something like Rod with a discard and branded opening, because that will give you Rod and it will give you Aluba, which gives you 2 monsters on the board, plus it gives you a route to Branded Fusion, and it gives you a route to Secrets of Dark Magic, or all of the other Dark Magician stuff like Magical Circle, Eternal Soul, and Soul Servant. The last card that we're playing that is effect monster related before we get onto the rituals is of course Palladium Oracle Mana. Now the reason we've decided to play this over Dark Magician Girl is for the pure fact that we're not using we don't really want to use Dark Magician Girl to bring her to the board to make synchro plays or anything like that. Mana being a light actually has a lot of synergy with the Branded Fusion opening, because that will give you your route to Aluba, which means you don't need to use a discard, and this will give you your route to Lubellion, which does require you to have a discard. And that's one big issue you need to remain or keep in mind with this deck, and with the synergy with Branded, is that you're going to be burning through your hand quite a lot. So when you're playing stuff like Master Change 2, if you wanted to spice that in there because you've got Souls, Rods, and a Luba, which if you can find the space for it, which is why this is still in the testing phase, I would highly advise putting it in there. But you've also got Super Poly that discards, you've got Albaz that discards on himself as well, so there's a lot to keep in mind. For the rituals, of course, we've still got 2 Illusion of Chaos and the 1 Saravas. I'm considering cutting the Saravas, but the reason we've still got it in here is for the pure fact that it protects anything from targeting. So if you should hard open this, it will protect Aluba, Lubellion, Albion from Imperms and Veilers. There are other ways of protecting them from targeting effects, but it's also very, very useful. Keep in mind as well, mana does have a very nice graveyard effect that if one of your spellcasters is targeted by an effect, you can special summon her back. The only issue is that that's going to be really good in the way or a turn where you can go into a link summon. Keeping in mind that you can't link summon the turn you activate Branded Fusion because it locks you into fusions, unless you want to send it off a Verti Anaconda, which, unless you've been able to get to Dragoon another way, like hard opening up Dark Magician and a Dragon, you're probably going to always want to send Red Eyes Fusion. So that's it for the Dark Magician monsters itself, and of course the 1 Red Eyes Fusion. Moving on to the Dark Magician spells, we are playing Triple Soul Servant, the Stacker, the Drawer, the Everything You Needer. It will still get 2 draws because of mana. It is going to be kind of good as long as you can get to a Dark Magician to the graveyard, which will require you more materials, but the Branded Fusion straight away can put mana in the graveyard. You've got to be very careful though, because both of the monsters that you use to put Dark Magicians or manas to the graveyard either A, shuffle them back into the deck, or B, banish them, which is why sometimes it's actually a lot better to use Branded Fusion just as a 1-card Mirror Jade. And by doing that, it will leave mana in the graveyard, or it will leave Dark Magician in the graveyard that can then be utilised for Magical Eyes Fusion, or can be utilised for a draw 2 off of Soul Servant. Especially if you do discard a lot, you're able to replenish your hand with Soul Servant as well. We've then got 2 Preparation of Rites. Arguably, you put this at 3 if you want to, but basically you're pseudo playing 4 copies of Illusion of Chaos. We know how good Illusion of Chaos is. You're 9 times out of 10 going to be going for Magician's Souls, as it is that free extender. It can get you to Dark Magician, it can get you to additional draws. But on the odd chance as well, you can kind of consider that these, alongside Illusion of Chaos, or a route to Illusion of Chaos, is a pseudo normal summon for Rod. Which is why we've only got 2 rods, because in theory you could technically be playing 6 of those. And then when you look at the Alubas, and when we get to the Despia package, you're playing 3 Branded Opening and 2 Alubas. So you've got 5 routes to that one as well. And we're also playing the new kit, which does the exact same job as Aluba, but requires you to put a card to the bottom of the deck, which is really nice to put Red Eyes back to the bottom, or Red Eyes Fusion, and still allowed you to build your board. For our draw card, we've actually got double Allure of Darkness. Now, the God hand, or the God play, is Allure of Darkness, and then banish off your Tragedy, because then Tragedy will trigger to give you an Aluba, so that gives you another route to a normal summon. It can also give you Adler Biten, which is really important, and I'll show you that in the combo at the end. Keep in mind as well that the Allure of Darkness is pretty much our best draw card, and if you do activate it after Dark Magical Circle, you know exactly what you're going to be drawing into, or if you activate it off the Preparation of Rites and Illusion of Chaos, again, you know exactly what you're going to draw into, so you can put that Tragedy back to the top of the deck, activate a Lore, draw into it, banish it, and then search yourself out in Aluba. For the one-offs, we've got the 1 Secrets of Dark Magic. Now, this is for the pure fact that Rod it's the only fusion spell that Rod can search. So, sadly, I would love to say we need a card that is basically Branded Fusion, but specifically for Dark Magician. I don't mind if it had a restriction like Red Eyes Fusion. Not so much that it just stops you playing for the turn, but it would be really nice if we got a searchable Red Eyes Fusion. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But for now, we use Secrets of Dark Magic. It's also really good because you can set it. And keep in mind as well, it lets you fusion summon 1 fusion monster from the extra deck. But you have to use monster from the hand or field, including Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl. The reason that is so important is because this still lets you get into the majority of your extra deck monsters. So this will still give you a Guardian Chimera. So even if you don't get into Branded in red, if you get to Secrets of Dark Magic, this will give you a Guardian Chimera during your opponent's turn, which is absolutely crazy, which means if you open up only the Rod route, you've got a way to it. If you open up only the Aluba route, you've got a route to it as well. The final 3 cards is the 1 Magical Eyes Fusion, the 1 Dark Magical Circle, and the 1 Eternal Soul. Now, obviously, the Magical Eyes Fusion is a bit more for later game. It will be one of them ones where you've already set up your graveyard, you've got a Dark Magician, you've got a Dragon, you activate that, give you a second Dragoon. Circle, again, has been cut to 1 because it's one of them ones where you search it and that's it. That's all you need to do is you search it, you get to it. You probably don't want to send it off of Souls and you want to leave it as it is. Eternal Soul, again, only as a one-of is all you need, especially in the like the mix between this and Despia, because this is even more damaging. So if this gets hit, you're in big trouble because you'll lose your Despia monsters. The only monster that you play in the combination of both decks that will stay on the board is Dragoon. And that's pretty much the core piece that is holding both of these engines together, is the synergy with Dragoon. So that's something to keep in mind. Moving on to the Despia / branded side, we are playing 2 Aluba, and the reason we're only playing 2 Aluba is because we're also playing 2 Tragedy, which pseudo into Aluba, alongside 1 Spring Gun Kit, which is also in pseudo an Aluba, because it will add you a branded spell or trap, and then put 1 from the hand to the bottom of the deck. It can be special summoned if you control a fusion monster that lists Fallen of Albaz as material. I'm also going to jump ahead to the spells as well, because you do play triple branded opening. And what's really good about this, and it's a massive tip that I highly advise everyone playing, is if you open this up, always think on your standby or draw phase on if you want to activate it then and there. By doing it then and there, the chances are you're going to special summon out your Aluba. You will be locked into fusion summonings for the entire turn, but what it will do is it will let you trigger the Aluba during the standby phase, and then Aluba will search during the standby phase as well, which means you can't get drolled early on, and it gives you that additional search plus an additional body on the board going forward. Continuing on with the monsters, we do have the 1 Adlerbyton. This is actually really, really important, and the reason this is important is because if you use this with Secret or Dark Magic, or you use it with branded in red to fuse into a Guardian Chimera, you can build up a chain block. The other thing that's really important as well, and I'll show you in the combo, is you use Mirror Jade's Dragon's effect during your turn to send an Albion from your extra deck to the graveyard by banishing your Aluba or your Souls, which is important to get that additional monster to the board. It will then, during your opponent's turn, when you activate Secrets of Dark Magic or branded in red, you fuse with Mirror Jade on the field, Adlerbyton in the hand, and any other monster, whether it be hand or field, and then your Adlerbyton will bring back the Mirror Jade, and its effect will be refreshed, meaning that you can use this effect again. Keeping in mind as well that the Albion you sent the previous turn would then be able to set a branded spell or trap. So that gives you access to the branded in red, and if you want to, it will also give you access to the branded Condemnation, which I believe is how its name's changed, but it's basically the counter trap for the branded themselves. We've got the 1 Albaz. Now, again, this is a little bit risky, but the idea is that when you're sending it, you very rarely want to use the Albion, because the Albion is going to banish your materials. You're more times than not going to want to use Lubellion, and it will spin this back into the deck, so then you get to go again with the branded fusion. If you want to, you can bump it up to 2, but at this moment in time, like I said, I've tried to keep the split even at 50-50, and there's still a couple of little kinks to work out. Just use this as a template and build off the back of it. We've then got the 1 Tri-Brigade Merry Courier. So again, it's one of the new cards from the structure deck, and it's while you control a fusion monster that lists Fallen of Albaz as material, you have a quick effect when your opponent activates a monster effect to discard this card, negate and destroy. If this card is banished, it will let you add a card that lists Fallen of Albaz, a monster that lists Fallen of Albaz or Fallen of Albaz himself to the hand. So keep that in mind. We've then got a very small, or the smallest way of the Edge Imp and Frightfur package. Now, this is probably the 4-card engine you could arguably cut, but let me explain why I've kept it in for now. The reason this is so important is, if this is to be sent from the hand or field, mainly from the hand, off of branded opening, it will trigger its effect, which will search you out Patchwork. You'll activate Patchwork to give you Poly and the Edge Imp. The best thing about the Poly, especially when you look at Magician's Rod as well, is that you've now got multiple engines to get you into at least 1 fusion spell. Especially when you're locking yourself into fusions, you want to make sure you have as many routes as possible. So if you were to use this as discard fodder, as long as it is not discarded as cost and it is part of an effect, I believe it actually triggers even if it is discarded as cost, because it just says if it is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard. So keep that in mind. But the idea will be is, in order to get your maximum potential on the board, you do need this Poly. This Poly will ultimately lead you either into a hard summon Dragoon backed up off of the back of branded fusion. It will give you discard fodder in your hand for Dragoon. It could also get you into a Masquerade Dragon, which again is incredibly important because it will put your opponent on a ticking time clock. And it also gives you that ability that should you open it or open this route, you can hard summon into a Guardian Chimera during your turn going second, and that will pop cards, draw cards, and then allow you to go into branded fusion and everything else. So that's it for the monsters and like their respective engines that follow off of them. Let's have a look at the remaining spells for the branded engine. Of course, triple branded fusion. Now, the issue behind this is that it does lock you into fusion summons for the entire turn, which did make me consider maybe fusion deployment in the deck. But I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to balance this out. And I'm going to rely less on trying to go for Verte, but I still want that ability to do it should I need to. So there could be one of the ones where if they omni-negate this, which basically means negate the activation, you can activate another one, or you're able to go into the extra deck. So it's one of them ones where if they Baroness this, or they Judgment this, or anything like that, you're able to continue to play, and I'd rather have that option of going into Verte than not have it at all should something like that happen. And then next, I think this is my favourite card. I really, really like this card. So Branded Lost. The activation of your cards and effects that include an effect that fusion summons a fusion monster cannot be negated. So they can't negate Verte, they can't negate secrets, and the best thing about that is your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when a monster is fusion summoned this way. So when you activate stuff on the summon, so on summon, Guardian Chimera effect, your opponent cannot respond. The best thing about that as well is if you fusion summon a fusion monster, you can add a Fallen of Albaz or monster that lists it from your deck to the hand. So that gives you into Kit as a free extender, that gives you into Fallen of Albaz should you randomly want it for a go second, normal summon, discard and super poly in effect. It can also get you into the Merry Carrier as well. Not to mention it protects everything. And then should you open up multiple copies or should one of these become dead, you can just Magician's Soul, send it and keep the other one spare as well. The last two cards is the one Despia Theatre of Branded and the one branded in red. Like, it's so easy to search these. And when you look at it, apart from the branded fusion, we're actually playing 4 fusion spells. So we've got 1 poly, 1 Despia Theatre, 1 branded in red, and 1 secrets. Keeping in mind as well, this is constantly searchable, and this and secrets is why we don't play 2 branded in red, is because they pretty much do the same job. The only thing is that this will give you a material back from the graveyard to then use, whereas the secrets will basically have to use your hand and field with what you've got ready to go. So that's it for the spells. Like I said, I don't play the counter trap, but it is something you could consider. If you want to make the most of it as well, you'd play the Albion Dragon, the main deck Dragon, because what it will do is it will send that trap, and then that trap lets you banish it to add a branded spell trap back from the grave. Another card you could arguably put in is the Light Hex Seal, and if you were to put this in, I'd probably put it in place of Mana. And the only reason I would do that is because it would unlock me the ability of making Tyrant Dragon. And for those of you that don't know what Tyrant Dragon is, I know this might be like a cardinal sin to use a Blue Eyes card in a Dark Magician deck, but this card is nuts. So go in second, you make this using Branded Fusion. You'd have to use the Light Hex Seal. It is unaffected by trap effect, which means it won't be nuked by your own Eternal Soul. Off the back of that as well, it can destroy all opponent's monsters, or can attack all your opponent's monsters once each at 3400 base. And then it lets you reset a trap card from your graveyard if it battled. So it would let you recycle your Eternal Soul. So it's definitely a card I would consider teching in. It's just something that I'm working towards at this moment in time. Moving on to the extra deck, we'll go over the... We'll go over the Dark Magician and the Link monsters first, and then we'll go over the Branded and Despia cards. So I wanted to keep the Link engine as small as possible because you lock yourself into fusioning if you activate the Branded Fusion. I wanted to make this as minimal as possible, and it is literally just the one run power play that is in the extra deck. So what have we got here? Well, we've basically got Unduct because that's your Dark Magician into a Dragon, set up a Magicalized Fusion should you open it, or get into Verte Anaconda. You've got Dart the Dark Charmer because not only can you steal your opponent's Fusion Destiny, or sorry, DPE, you can also steal their Mirror Jade, you can steal their Dragoon, you can steal all of their stuff from the graveyard and then continue your plays from there. Verte Anaconda, like I said, we're still playing Red Eyes Fusion. If you did really, really want to and you wanted to make Verte to send Branded Fusion, which you can do, the only card it's going to make is the Mirror Jade, but it does happen, and that gives you an option there as well. And then Selene is just your Link power play to Selene into Access Code, which will ultimately end up having 2, if not 3, non-target destruction pops. These aren't necessities. These are just one of the ones where I would definitely say Verte, at least one copy of Verte is for this particular like mishmash, because it is a bringing together of 2 decks that do require this little bit of power and consistency. For the Dark Magician cards at the moment, we're only playing 2 Dragoon and the 1 Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight. So obviously this can be made off of Branded Fusion, which is great. And the way you do that is Lubellion will send a Albaz plus Dark Magician, and then use Lubellion's effect to discard a card to spin them back. What's really good about that is this will then protect all of your quick play spells as well as your traps. So keep in mind, if you activate Eternal Soul, this is treated as Dark Magician on the board. So as long as you've activated Eternal Soul, let's say your opponent draws on their third turn for a Super Poly. As long as Eternal Soul is face up on the field, this is unaffected by card effects. So it means your opponent cannot Super Poly this card, which is really important because if you just left him on the board, they can never use your monsters. But if you use this plus another Dark, they might be like, cool, I'm going to go into Starving Venom. You go, nope, he's unaffected by card effects in general, which means you can't use him as fusion material for with Super Poly. So really, really important. Nice little loophole, which makes him so good. And then, like I said, he protects your branded in red. So if your opponent's like, I know that he set branded in red off of the back of Albion, I'm going to be able to blow this out. You go, well, no, because Dark Magician the Dragon Knight's going to protect that, meaning that your opponent can't just go Duster, Twin Twister, anything like that. Really, really cool. Really, really important as well. Well, I'd say they can't destroy it. They can't target it. So it's just like Twin Twisters and Cosmics is like, cool, you're not going to be able to deal with that and you're good to rock and roll. Then moving on to the branded spells and traps, of course, we've got the one Mirror Jade. This is basically your boss monster. This gets everything you need done. So it has a quick effect that you can only use once every other turn, where you send a monster that lists Fallen of Albaz from your extra deck to the graveyard to non-target banish one monster your opponent controls. So why is that so good? Well, it doesn't even need to be one monster your opponent controls. To be fair, it's one monster on the field, which is why the Albion is so important. So Albion has a graveyard effect that if it is sent and is in the graveyard this turn, it will let you set a branded spell or trap. So this gets you into branded in red. It can get you into branded opening. If you wanted to, it could get you into branded fusion should you send this during your opponent's turn. But keep in mind, when I show you the combo, you'll see why we send this during our turn as well. Ice Jade also has a second effect that if it is destroyed by your opponent's card effect, then it basically lets you destroy all monsters your opponent controls during the end phase of this turn. The delay can actually be quite important because if your opponent forgets about this or doesn't know about it, they can actually build their board and then you go end phase Mirror Jade and they're like, yeah, what's that doing? Oh, it's going to destroy all your monsters, and they're like, oh, okay. Then of course the other card we play is the Lubellion. Pretty straightforward and standard on this one. So this one requires a Dark Monster plus Fallen of Albaz. If it's Fusion Summoned, you discard a card to Fusion Summon using your Face Up Banished, your Graveyard, which is also quite good with the Face Up Banish off of the Law of Darkness, or the field, and you shuffle them back into the deck, and then Fusion Summon out that monster. The other one that we play, or the last Albaz one we play, is the Brigade, and the reason we play this is because you send it off a Mirror Jade. Like, if you've already got branded in red and everything you need, you can send this off of the Mirror Jade during your turn, and this will then trigger in order to add you the Merry Carrier, which gives you a monster effect negator. If you don't want to, I would highly advise making this a second Albion. And then the final cards we play are the power cards. So we've got 2 Masquerade Dragons. You could arguably cut this to 1 if you wanted to. The only reason you would do that is because you're only going to be operating to go through 1. But the idea is that if you're able to get, like if you can't brand it in red into Chimera, or you don't have Chimera, putting 2 of these on your board puts your opponent onto a ticking clock. So these burn your opponent, or your opponent has to pay 600 life points for every card they activate. So it's basically, it's not like Red Eyes Flare Metal where they burn after resolution. It's they have to pay a maintenance cost in order to activate it. So if they wanted to activate Dark Ruler no more, they still have to pay 600 even though it negates its field. So imagine having 2 of these, they will trigger both times. It also triggers under Mystic Mine as well. So it's really, really important and causes your opponent a lot of issues. Also, it can bring itself back from the graveyard. It's a shame that it's not a dragon, that it's a fiend, but does its job. And then, of course, Guardian Chimera is probably the best fusion monster as a generic boundary for everything right now. It just requires 3 monsters with different names. It needs to use the hand and the field, at least 1 from each. It will draw cards equal to the number of monsters used from the hand, and it will non-target destroy cards on the field equal to the number of monsters used on the field. This is important because I'll show you in the combo why he's useful, and you need to use Mirror Jade on the board to do it. But it is the basic boss monster right now. If you don't have that, your quick play spells can get you into Dragoon, Secrets of Dark Magic, your Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight, but your branded in red will give you into your Masquerade Dragon or your Guardian Chimera as well. So that's it for the deck list. Like I said, use this as a skeleton to build on top of it. The deck is still going through a testing phase, so it's definitely something that I want to be working towards a little bit more to kind of see where we can go. So now I'm going to show you the very basic branded play. And this is why it's important. So keep in mind as well, you'll still have the ability for draw cards, you'll still have the ability for everything else you might need. But what you need is Branded Fusion plus 1 discard. So I'm going to zoom this out a little bit as well. See the Dark Magician stuff at the top. So if you were able to add Magician's Rod to this, if you're able to add like branded, if you like adding Branded Open to this, it just makes it like busted broken. The idea is you'd activate Branded Fusion, you'll send from your deck to the graveyard your Albaz and anything you want really. It depends if you want to get to the Mirror Jade, which is what we're trying to get to. So you send your Fawn of Albaz, but you can, if you've opened up Soul Servant, you can in theory send Dark Magician if you've also opened up Aluba, but that's where you want to go. So you send your Despia and Tragedy, and what happens here is you fuse into Lubellion. There we go. Lubellion's effect will trigger to discard a card. So you go Chaining 1 that, Chaining 2 Tragedy. In this scenario, you could add a Luba, which will give you draw plays, but we're actually going to go specifically to dodge Super Poly and make your plays around it. This is the route we're going to go. So you're going to add the Adlerbyton, you're going to put the Albaz back into the deck, you're going to put the Lubellion back into the extra deck, and you're going to summon out your Mirror Jade. Okay, cool. So you've done all of the hard work. Now all you need is an extender or a normal summon. Now, your normal summon can be, and like we've just shown, it can be searched, is your Aluba. It can also be Magician's Souls, or Magician's Rod, or an Illusion of Chaos. Keep in mind as well that Illusion of Chaos can also be Preparation of Rites. You can see that in the remaining 3 cards in your hand, how else or what else they could be. So specifically for this particular reason, I'm going to take a Dark Magician card to show you how the two synergize together. So you'd normal summon the Magician's Rod, use his effect. Now it's entirely up to you on what you want to go for. Probably Secrets of Dark Magic, depending if you've got Dark Magician in the hand. You can go for Eternal Soul if you've put Dark Magician to the graveyard. Soul Servant to stack your deck for a good draw the next turn. Or Circle. It really doesn't matter. The idea is that you're getting an additional monster on the board. That is what you're trying to do. So then what you're going to do here is you're going to use Mirror Jade's effect to send from your extra deck to the graveyard your Albion to banish a monster on the field, and you're going to banish the Magician's Rod. Now obviously it'd be a little bit better if Magician's Rod went to the graveyard, but it is what it is. So then what you're going to do here is during the end phase, the effect of Albion is going to trigger, and that's going to let you search Branded in red. Now obviously keep in mind, rather than Circle, if you went with Aluba, you'd actually end up with like a Branded Lost or a backup Branded Fusion or a Branded Opening. So you still have more to play around with. But the whole idea of this is to show you why you want to kind of like clear your board off. So straight away, this is set in the end phase, you pass your opponent's turn. They can't Super Poly you yet until they commit a monster to the board, and that will be where you activate your Branded in red. So they're going to commit a monster to the board. We'll just use this poker chip to represent that monster. Keep in mind, this can't use this effect because it used it during our turn, but it will be able to in a minute. So you activate Branded in red, you add back your Tragedy, you fuse with Tragedy, Adlerbyton, and the Mirror Jade, banishing all 3 of these. There you go. So you then resolve this chain. So resolving this chain, you go into the Guardian Chimera. Your Guardian Chimera used 1 monster on the field and 2 in the hand. So it's going to let you draw 2 cards and pop 1 non-target, which will be this card here. So you're chaining 1 Guardian Chimera, chaining 2 Tragedy, chaining 3 Adlerbyton. If you think your opponent's got an Omni Monster Negate in the hand, then you make sure Adlerbyton is 2 and Tragedy is 3. Tragedy will search, which will give you a Luba. Adlerbyton will let you summon back a, I believe it's a level 8 or higher fusion monster or a Despia. So it will bring back the Mirror Jade Dragon, which has refreshed its effect, meaning that during this turn it can send a monster from the extra deck to the graveyard again to non-target banish a card. And then you'll resolve the Guardian Chimera, which will draw you 2 cards, and then non-target destroy the 1 monster your opponent's put to the board. Now, obviously, your opponent will be able to chain Super Poly to the Branded in red if they conduct that monster. So if they put that monster here and they went chain Super Poly, the same thing would happen. They would Super Poly with your Mirror Jade, they would use their monster. You would not have a monster on the field to use, so your Branded in red would actually go for a Tax Dragon instead. So keep that in mind. But the idea would be is that you're forcing your opponent's hand, you're replenishing your hand, and you've got your set for your normal summon the next turn. You've got 2 additional cards in play already, and that's just how you can build through it. Now that is just a generic kind of Branded Fusion play, but this is what I'm saying is if you marry that or merge that with the Dark Magician cards as well, you still have additional plays to make, and it's kind of why the power play of Branded Fusion is so good that it's been considered to be put across the 2. you're sacrificing the Adler Bite and play anyway. So a random discard, and we'll go with Magician's Rod, which, like I've already shown you, you've got a couple of routes to get to this anyway. So activate Branded Fusion. You're locked into fusions. Who cares? Send Fallen of Albaz. Don't even really need to send Tragedy, to be honest. Like, you could send anything you wanted to. You can send the Light Hexil, or you can send Dark Magician, which is probably what I'm going to do now anyway. So send Dark Magician. I could go directly into... there we go. I could go directly into Dragoon here, but the reason of going into Dark Magician the Dragon Knight is it would actually put a Dark Magician in the graveyard so that if you've got Eternal Soul, you can bring that back and protect your back row. So you discard a card, you spin Dark Magician and Fallen of Albaz back into the main decks. That will trigger Lubellion's effect, or that would be Lubellion's effect. You bring out Dark Magician the Dragon Knight. You then normal summon your Magician's Rod. Magician's Rod effect will go off to search you a card, a spell, or track the list Dark Magician in its text. You've got Secrets of Dark Magic. You can either activate this now or deal with it later. You're still going to have at least 2 cards in your hand as well. Activate Secrets of Dark Magic, fuse the Rod and the Dark Magician the Dragon Knight. You can do it during your turn, you can do it during your opponent's turn. It really doesn't matter. Sorry, not the Rod. What am I doing? The Dark Magician the Dragon Knight and Lubellion. And you'll go into Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. So then if one of those cards is a route to Eternal Soul, you activate Eternal Soul and bring back your Dark Magician the Dragon Knight. Which is why you would go into Dark Magician the Dragon Knight first if you've got Rod. If you don't have Rod, then you just go to Dragoon. So, and that should just show you how you can get into that. But like I said, this is still the testing phase. This is just like the beta of this particular version of the deck. And I'll still be looking into other ways of improving it. And like I've already mentioned throughout this, there's stuff where I'm like, ooh, Dark Magicians will be good at this point, and it'll also be pretty good to add in this card at this particular point as well. Anyway, I hope you've found this useful. I hope you can use this as a very good stepping stone in order to kind of construct your own particular build for this, and we'll be able to work it together from there. If you do have any questions, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you and go from there. But as absolutely always, guys, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.